What's going on, everybody? This is Lady Luck here again. All right, we got some content coming out because there was a brawl in Thornton. um, I posted a video earlier of a couple more angles of that fight. I identified another person that was aiding and helping Super Stupid and her goon, DeMarcus, and I guess this attack that he had on Jedediah. He pushed Jedediah by his head. So I heard Randy, but I don't know his name. But if anybody recognizing that video who he is, please post it in the comments so we can have names on who these people are. And as more videos are posted, you get more angles and views of it, more people are going to be identified. Because y'all shouldn't have put your hands on anybody. That was ridiculous. Kamal Woods needs to sit his old ass down and go focus on this divorce that is sure to come. So we have, and everybody's asking, who this woman, Harpo? Who this woman? This is a reporter with the National Review. And this video is about whether or not the B word is illegal. Short answer, no, it's not illegal. It's just not. We have a whole ass constitution. And I, for one, I got to tell you all, I've never taken such a great interest in politics and law and government to this extent. I've always done some homework and research on things, but not to this level until Super Stupid became a global phenomenon and Pink Book lessons put her on the map with YouTube. So now I'm sitting here reading and look up information because I've gotten a few questions about whether or not Jedediah using the B word was illegal or did it incite violence. The answer is 90% of the time, the Supreme Court rulings will say no, it is not illegal. The remaining 10% of the time will be based on the circumstance and what has happened or occurred before, during, and after the word is said. So at the end of the day, it would depend on the situation, but there are more court rulings and case law, especially Supreme Court rulings, that will reflect that even using the word bitch is protected free speech. Okay? And then I do have case law. I have a Connecticut Supreme Court ruling and I had to find something that was, where it's so close, it's almost hard to distinguish the two, where a young lady, the defendant called a McDonald's employee a fat, ugly bitch. And the Connecticut Supreme Court ruled that it was protected free speech. So most people can agree that it might be distasteful depending on the situation, who you're talking to, who it's targeting, and then the outcome, the immediate outcome of it. However, in that situation with Jedediah, he directed that term towards Super Stupid. She did not immediately get up and try to fight him, nor was there any proof or evidence that he was trying to go and physically start something with her. I highly doubt he would have done that. He's always expressed his mind. You have to look at a pattern of behavior as well to determine whether this is something where it's inciting violence or chaos or disturbing the peace. It has to be, or harassment behavior. Harassment in and of itself must meet the parameters of being considered repetitive behavior. Saying it one time is not repetitive. So when you're looking up this information, please make sure you're looking at case law and the precedents that's been set in other cases that have been ruled in Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, even state Supreme Courts, on whether or not calling someone a bitch is inciting a riot or act of violence or considered protected free speech. So we're going to check this video out from the National Review and see what she has to say about it. And then we're going to get straight to the case law.
I'm Kat Timp with National Review. Massachusetts legislators recently considered a bill that would criminalize certain uses of the word bitch. making it punishable by up to 6 months in jail or a fine of up to $200. The bill, introduced a month ago by State Democratic Representative Dan Hunt, states that, quote, a person who uses the word bitch directed at another person to accost, annoy, degrade, or demean the other person shall be considered to be a disorderly person and to be guilty of a criminal offense.
I want y'all to take note that she said Democratic State Representative Dan Hunt. Democratic. Super Stupid is a Democrat, as far as I still know. So let's keep things in perspective here when we're talking about who's trying to bring along a bill along that type of caliber. All right, I just want to point that out.
Punishable by a fine of not more than either $150 or $200 or jail time of up to 6 months. The offense can be reported not only by the person being called a bitch, but also an offended third-party witness. As many legal scholars have since pointed out, the proposed law is blatantly unconstitutional.
Yep.
Basically, the consensus is clear that this would not and could not ever become law. But honestly, I still find myself disturbed by the fact that it was even discussed in the legislature. Exactly. After all, this means that the public servants in Massachusetts actually have so little knowledge of the Constitution, which the taxpayers are paying them to protect, that they spent their taxpayer-funded time earnestly considering it. It's terrifying, but it's true. A sincere proposal to criminalize a word was formally considered at the highest level of a state's government. Someone was advocating for blatantly unconstitutional censorship, not just in some classroom in Berkeley, California, but in an official capacity at a state's capital. The good news is, I truly believe that most people would disagree with this kind of law. At the same time, though, when we see something like this, we cannot deny that the super woke, censorship happy aren't having any influence. They are. And it's up to us sane people to fight against this toxic, draconian line of thinking whenever we see it. After all, living in a country without freedom of speech as a check on government power would be more than just kind of a bitch.
I like how she ended it. That video was like 2 minutes long. So this is a national review. And she kind of just basically went over the state bill that they tried to pass in Massachusetts. By the Democratic state rep. And it failed. It was unconstitutional. So the Constitution gives states the right to create state statutes or law. Okay. The caveat to that is it cannot be deemed unconstitutional. It cannot negate or contradict what's in the Constitution itself. If there's ever any confusion, Dan Hunt and anyone else can simply look up case law. So here's where case law comes into play. This is an article from courthousenews.com. And this article is about a case in the Connecticut Supreme Court regarding a customer's vulgar diatribe. She called an employee. This is back in 2017, but case law is case law. Case law is still law. All right. So the Connecticut Supreme Court received the case regarding a customer that had been charged and sent to jail for calling a grocery store worker a fat, ugly bitch. And the Connecticut Supreme Court found no fighting words in the outburst. Fundamentally, and I'm reading down here below, this article was written by Lorraine Bailey. You guys can check this out on that website. We are called upon to determine whether the defendant's speech is protected under the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, or rather, constitutes criminal conduct that a civilized and orderly society may punish through incarceration. Justice Andrew McDonald wrote for the 4-3 court on July 11. 4-3 meaning that 4 judges agreed to a rule to overturn the jail sentence, and 3, said no, don't overturn it. We think that the ruling should be upheld in a lower court. The distinction has profound consequences in our constitutional republic. Police arrested Nina Bacala on September 30, 2013, while the 40-year-old was trying to pick up a money transfer at a Stop and Shop market in Vernon, Connecticut. Before heading to the store at night, Bacala had called ahead asking if the store could keep its Western Union money transfer desk open until she arrived. The assistant store manager, Tara Freeman, testified that she was met with pretty much every swear word you can think of when she informed Bacala that the Western Union desk had already closed. Bacala, who walks with a cane, arrived at the store a few minutes later. Freeman said she repeated what she had said over the phone about the store being closed, and that Bacala then proceeded to call her a fat, ugly bitch and a C-U-N-T word. F-U, Bacala said, "You're not a manager." The customer left the store when Freeman would not engage her. "Have a good night," was all that the assistant manager had said in reply, according to the ruling. That means she testified to that. After the jury found Bacala guilty of breaching the peace, she was sentenced to 25 days in jail. The Connecticut Supreme Court acknowledged Tuesday that Bacala's language was extremely offensive, but found it unlikely that the outburst would have provoked violence. Why is that, Lady Luck? I'll tell you why. I'm glad you asked. Because she called her a fat, ugly bitch and left the store. They did not get into a fight. The end. And you don't believe me? Go back and read up. The customer left the store when Freeman would not engage with her. "Have a good night," was all that the assistant manager said in the reply. That part alone gives you the idea of the circumstance around the words being said. What did it lead to immediately? It did not lead to a fight. She went, left the store, have a good night, that's it. How did we get to her being charged and sentenced to 25 days in jail? I don't know. But let's keep reading. God. An average store manager would know as she approached the defendant that if the defendant became abusive, the manager could demand that the defendant leave the premises, threaten to have her arrested for trespassing if she failed to comply, and make good on that threat if the defendant still refused to leave. The 19-page opinion states, with such lawful self-help tools at her disposal and the expectations attendant to her position, it does not appear reasonably likely that Freeman was at risk of losing control over the confrontation. And indeed, Freeman did not respond with violence to Bacala's diatribe or even with an angry word of her own. In sum, the natural reaction of an average person in Freeman's position who is confronted with a customer's profane outburst, unaccompanied by any threats, would not be to strike her. McDonald wrote for the majority, and that's the judge who basically wrote the op-ed. Most times this happens with federal court cases like this. You'll have, Supreme Court give a ruling, and then you'll have either the ones who rule with the majority or the dissenters to give an op-ed to explain the case, overall the summary, and their viewpoints on it and interpretation of the law. So, the ruling emphasizes that courts must determine on a case-by-case basis. Get this now. Case-by-case basis. All of the circumstances relevant to whether a reasonable person in the position of the actual addressee would have been likely to respond with violence. Keep that part in mind. Because I said at the beginning of the video, it is based on the circumstance of what's going on when the word is used. So, on a case-by-case basis, all circumstances must be considered to determine whether or not Jedediah calling super stupid a bitch or saying you gone bitch, because we got to use the whole statement he made. You gone bitch. That's what he said. He didn't just say, I'm about to kick your ass, bitch. Nope. He said, you gone, bitch. No different than this woman calling the assistant manager fat, ugly bitch. The words in and of itself would not have incited violence. What incited the violence in Thornton was Kamal Woods getting his dumb ass up, confronting Jedediah, calling him a bitch, calling him expletives, and therefore causing that violence, that ruckus, the chaos to be incited. But if you remove that out the situation, which is what a judge would do, they would look at this piece by piece. Now, in another scenario, had Jedediah said, "You gone, bitch," went and sat down, and Kamal did nothing and said nothing, no fight would have ensued. But in this scenario with Thornton, a fight occurred because a third party got up and aggravated and agitated the situation. Let's say Kamal didn't even hear it and he didn't even respond or even look up. Guess what? Super Stupid probably would have ran her mouth. You calling me the B word, blah, 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 whatever. But she would not have gotten up and started a fight with Jedediah either. Nor was he going towards her to start a fight with her. And for those that are saying that, it is your presumption of it. But that's not an affirmation. That's not affirmative. And the court doesn't work on theories. They don't go on that. They have to go on the facts and what they see and hear in the video. He could sit there and say, "I wasn't going anywhere near her. I was going to take a seat." And that would be a reasonable defense to say, "This is why I was walking towards the front, because I was going to sit down or I was going to talk to someone. I wasn't going anywhere near her." You can't say what his intent was when he didn't walk charging towards her in a way where he was still calling her the word repeatedly. It wasn't a repeated pattern of behavior with that. He said, "You gone, bitch." That was it. So you can't say he was going towards her, because that's not going to work in court. It's not going to work in court. And the judge would say that would be objected all day as presumptive. And the judge would be like, "Well, you don't know that. You don't know what he was going to do." But I have to take his word and what's more credible and believable and reasonable to assume, as far as what I'm seeing based on the facts at hand. That probably wouldn't even be considered because it's too much error to assume in that. But what is for sure, had Kamal not gotten out of his seat and said a word, Jedediah saying, "You gone, bitch," would not have incited violence. And that is what the court has to look at regarding the circumstance around it in this particular situation, as it did in this Connecticut Supreme Court ruling. So that's the key part here. I think I'm a print screen this, and that's going to be my thumbnail. Unlike George Carlin's classic 1972 comedic monologue, 7 words you can never say on television, it is well settled that there are no per se fighting words. The Supreme Court directed the trial court to enter a judgment of acquittal on remand. Justice Dennis Evely dissented, joined by 2 other justices. And then you guys can read the information below that. Dissented meaning they disagreed with, the ruling. It was for the overturning, 3 against it. So the 3 that were against it, like I said, typically you'll have one of the judges do an op-ed on that, and they kind of give their justification why they dissented. But you got to hear both sides, right? So you guys can check that out. This is just a really straightforward, case law that has set precedents and upheld, being called fat, ugly bitch as a part of protected free speech that would not have incited violence, and the circumstance to what happened immediately after that, meaning the lady left the store. That it didn't incite violence because it just didn't. In this situation with Jedediah, it incited violence because someone else, it didn't even incite violence. Violence occurred because someone else got up, a third-party person got up, called him an expletive, and then incited the violence from that point. But had he sat down, removed Kamal out the situation, what do you have left? You have Jedediah saying, "You gone, bitch," sitting down. People would have, that was nasty. You didn't have to say that. Okay, but it's not illegal. And in that particular circumstance, if Kamal had not even entered the picture or said a word, it would not have incited a fight. Not at all. It probably would have been a war of words. And super stupid mostly, because, she thinks she can disrespect everybody else, but God, if you say something about her, it's, "Oh, you're not supposed to say that." No, they can. No, they can. They can. Now, here's what I will say, and here's my opinion as Lady Luck. If this were to go to court, and they had a fair and impartial judge, because they damn sure don't have good cops in South Holland, but if they had a fair and impartial judge, the judge would more than likely admonish all of them. He would go down the line. DeMarcus, you broke government property. They need to deduct whatever money you think you're going to get to replace that TV you broke. No one told you to interject your dumb ass into that fight. You jumped up on that table and you broke that TV. So he will be in there. The guy, Randy, whoever was pushing Jedediah's head in the other video I just posted, he will be there. Kamal, super stupid. And, of course, if Jedediah decides to file charges, then he would be the petition. The judge will get all the asses, period. And I'm okay with that. You know why? Because I'd rather the judge be fair and impartial and get all of them, and then give a ruling to say, had this party over here not gotten up, this third party individual that Jedediah was not even talking to, he was not directing the "you gone bitch" phrase at Kamal. He directed it at super stupid. And there's no denying that. That's a fact. Because it's in a video. But he was not talking to Kamal. But Kamal interjected himself into that situation when he got up and responded and said something to him in return to get his attention when he was going to a seat or to talk to somewhere, wherever he was going to. And then that's when the fight ensued. But saying "you gone bitch" in and of itself as a standalone event would more than likely have not led to violence. Just a bunch of people moaning and groaning. But no one else got up and fight either. So you can't say he incited a riot. That's not applicable. It's two totally different things. You incite a riot, they could just go and destroy some property and no one actually has a fist fight with each other. But that's not how that works. It's a two totally separate concepts here. And if you don't believe Lady Luck, please Google it. Please Google it. Because, these are things that can be Googled. Google. Read. Google. But no, that's not the same. A riot is a riot. It's just an upheaval. So it's just a blatant act of disruption to the peace. But violence being towards another person is like assault and battery. It's totally different. Totally different. You can have a riot and not insult an actual individual or hurt anyone else or inflict injury or harm upon anyone else physically. No, two totally different things. So keep that in mind. If they were in court, the judge would get all the asses down the line. He'll probably start with Jedediah and then go down the line and then go over to the defendants with Super Stupid and Kamal and DeMarcus and the other guy, that Randy, whoever that person is, that was involved. Oh, and Lavelle, I'm sorry. And Lavelle would be in there too. He would get all of them. He or she would get all of them out of fairness. And take it, accept it. Because at the end of the day, the point would be to prove that this would not have incited a violent act of any sort or a fight or anything. Had Kamal not gotten up. And I think that's a fair assessment considering the facts and what we've seen in the video. He could have just sat down and shut the fuck up. But he didn't do that. He didn't do that at all. I call her super stupid 22 times a day because it's therapeutic. No one has fought me yet over it. It's absurd. All right. So at any point in time, you guys, want to have a better, I guess, an understanding of what's going on. I research things. I read and I look information up. And in this situation, I think this has to be addressed at least and spark some sort of conversation about it. So you guys can, leave your comments and stuff like that. I would love to hear Nate the lawyer or Legal Eagle or Debt Free Dad attorney reacts, to hear their perspective on this, because they are attorneys and I'm not. I just Googled, but I had to look for, a case that was extremely similar, even down to, both scenarios involving the word bitch in the video. Infringing upon others' rights is never a good thing to do. And it's very dangerous. It can create whole federal lawsuits that the Thornton Township or Village of Dalton cannot afford right now. Because it's my understanding they had just gotten the insurance. And then DeMarcus goes and breaks a television. That should not be covered by insurance. That should come out of his check. Or out of Super Supers. Or Kamal's. I don't really care. But it should not be coming out of tax dollars to replace that damn thing. And the insurance company is going to look at this video. I hope you all know that. If they try to file a claim with the insurance company, they're going to look at this video and say, what the hell is this buffoonery? We're not paying this claim. Y'all just got insurance with us 30 minutes prior. And now you got destruction of government property. Why isn't DeMarcus in jail? I mean, he just really effed up that whole night last night. He had a red chair in his hand he was going to use as a weapon. He broke a television. He destroyed government property. I mean, what more? Involved in a fight for no reason at all, because Super Stupid is not your girlfriend, bro. So why the hell are you even helping with the fight to begin with? Kamal was the one that had the issue. He just stood there and you want to do all that? Well, y'all take it outside next time. I mean, seriously, take it outside. You can't control what people do, but at least take it outside. You can control the environment they're in. Go outside. Then y'all can duke it out there. All in the snow and good luck to that. That slush and shit. That slush and snow and shit that was not shoveled. Hey, go outside out there and roll around in that. At least he wouldn't have been around a whole bunch of other people. Good grief. And then the cops did nothing. Jedediah tried to go to the police station to file charges. They didn't even want to take a report because South Holland is the worst. It needs to be revamped. I've been saying that forever. So, either way, hope you guys enjoyed this. Always be in the spirit of learning and looking up information that's especially educational and helps you give you a better understanding of certain situations and what's going on, and you can understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. But I would love to hear these YouTube attorneys that are actual legitimate attorneys' viewpoint on this, and hopefully you guys share the link, share the video, share this information, take time to read, look this information up, and understand that, as it states from the judge that penned the op-ed, that it has to be taken on a case-by-case basis. I think I'm going to make that my thumbnail. All right. But you guys take care. Be good. Lady Luck out. Peace.